Cerebral Cinema and the WON Radio Network present to you Superwoman. Yes, Superwoman, the dynamic crime fighter. Superwoman, the champion of justice. Superwoman, who in truth is mild-mannered Chicago news reporter Emily Nesbacher. With sweaty palms, Emily nearly loses hold of the rock, keeping her from taking a fatal plummet. Her shoulder stings from the bullet wound she'd received moments before. The thought of Rurik escaping for good with Selina makes Emily discard all rationality. She places the soles of her bare feet against the cliffside and pushes with all her might. Emily leaps away, high into the air. Any sense of direction is lost as the endless expanse of the sky encompasses her. The harsh wind blows her long blonde hair about wildly as her prison attire flaps like a sail. Emily puts her arms forward and imagines herself flying.
Yes, this is what flying feels like. Total freedom.
Emily forgets her dire situation, and for a few seconds, she is at peace. That ends when her body crashes against the jagged ground. Like a corpse, Emily lies lifeless. Some buzzards circle above her, ready for a feast. Her eyelids split apart. The sun's heat awakens her, and Emily sits up with excruciating pain, throbbing through her body. Emily looks at her shoulder. There is a small bullet indent, but no hole nor blood. She looks at her arms and legs. The dog bites have healed. With much effort, Emily stands and approaches the foot of the cliff. She looks at a large rock and, without warning, punches it as hard as she can. The rock shatters. Emily rubs her fist. For the first time in days, she feels more powerful than a locomotive and is ready to plow down anything foolish enough to step on the tracks in front of her. Mile after mile, our heroine roams the desert.
Where am I? Where are all the others?
Every so often, Emily stops and jumps, attempting to fly away, but never managing to leave the ground for more than a couple of seconds. The blistering sun eventually sets for the day, and Emily continues on late into the night. A small campfire appears, providing Emily with a beacon to follow in the darkness. It leads her to a campsite where Shady Lady sits awake, evidently awaiting Emily's arrival.
Hello, Emily.
Good evening, Miss Shady Lady.
Coffee?
Yes, thank you.
Shady Lady gets Emily a cup of coffee. Emily sits in front of the fire and dulls her exhaustion with the hot beverage. Shady Lady sits opposite her, watching the flames with wide-eyed wonder.
Light affects me like darkness affects other people. It frightens and fascinates me. I feel safe in the dark, within the umbra of a shadow.
Not me. I hate being left in the dark. So please enlighten me. What the heck is going on?
Life. It's the most confusing experience a person can have.
I've lost my superpowers.
You survived a 200-foot fall.
Normally I don't fall. I fly.
Your powers shall be restored. In time.
In time for what?
When I need them.
They're not yours to use.
What if I asked you to save someone?
I save anyone who needs me.
Even a criminal like Selina?
Yes. Sometimes bad people need heroes the most.
Then I need you.
To do bad things? Forget it.
This isn't the world of 2020 anymore. It's more like the world of 1914. And here, women have a hard time surviving.
So why are we here in the first place?
To learn to live without the things 2020 offers us. Only then can we become true superwomen.
Okay. As outlaw women of 1914, what do we do first? Rob a bank or picket in the street?
We start a circus.
You're kidding.
No. People will come from all around to see the magnificent Superwoman, strongest person alive. We'll make a fortune.
A circus? I seriously wasn't expecting that.
Either that or something far less reputable, if you know what I mean. Men would pay a high price.
No thanks. We'll give the circus a shot.
Shady Lady laughs softly and stands.
Get some sleep. We'll discuss things in the morning.
Is there something I can call you besides Shady Lady?
Yes. You may call me Pearl. Pearl Pits.
Is that your real name?
It represents who I am well enough. Good night, Emily.
Shady Lady turns and disappears into the shadows.
Good night, Pearl. Miss Pitts. Whoever you are.
People of all ages crowd into a large circus tent. They sit on bleachers surrounding a circular arena. The lights overhead dim, and the audience quiets. A spotlight appears and follows Pearl Pitts to the center of the arena. Pearl stands beside a tall wooden crate.
Welcome to the show, boys and girls. Thank you for bringing your parents and grandparents along. You are about to see marvels beyond belief, great wonders of the world, horrifying freaks of nature, and untamed beasts from the wild. Try to keep your sanity intact and remember, we have everything under control. Our first presentation tonight is called Terror of the Superwoman. From the vast reaches of space, this alien visitor possesses the strength of 50 Earth men, yet she is as beautiful as any woman born on our planet. You will fear and love her. Behold, the Lady of Steel!
Emily bursts out of the wooden crate. Emily leaps in front of the audience. She's wearing a colorful leotard and cape somewhat similar to her former Superwoman outfit.
Joining the woman of tomorrow is a man from yesterday, humanity's ancestor, the missing link himself, Geo the Gorilla!
A large cage is wheeled into the arena. It contains a robust ape that growls at the audience.
Our Herculean demigoddess will battle this heavyweight brute for your adoration. Cheer her on as she faces potential death.
Emily removes her cape and enters the cage through a door that is locked behind her. She approaches the gorilla slowly, but without fear. The ape is pitch black, as if covered entirely by a thick layer of shadow. It acts as if it's possessed. Emily extends her hand toward Geo, inviting him to compete with her in a friendly match of strength. The ape leaps on top of her. Emily wrestles the gorilla. The audience watches intently as the match between woman and beast plays out. Geo has Emily pinned for a while before she lifts him up off of her. Geo and Emily roll around on the cage floor, fighting for the dominant position. Emily manages to get Geo into a headlock. The gorilla struggles for freedom.
I'm sorry, my friend. I don't wish to hurt you. Please give in for the show's sake.
Emily pins Geo to the ground. The gorilla eventually gives up and falls asleep. Emily stands and flexes her muscles to the audience. After the show, the circus crew and performers get ready for the night. Emily walks among her new family with cordial greetings.
Good night. See you all in the morning.
She is wearing a robe and has just taken a bath in a nearby creek. The cool autumn evening weather is highly refreshing to Emily. For the past 5 months, she'd wrestled lions, leopards, tigers, alligators, cougars, bears, and gorillas before a live audience. Her aching muscles need plenty of recovery following each show. Emily sits on a log behind the cage of Geo and smiles at her co-star.
Wow, what a performance tonight. You were spectacular, Geo.
The gorilla doesn't respond while eating a large bowl of salad.
I'm sorry about Pearl's shadow trance. I know you hate it, but it's meant to protect you.
Theodore, the acrobatic dwarf, is standing behind Emily, listening with amusement as she attempts a conversation with the ape.
He, doesn't understand human speech. You need a translator.
Theodore jumps up onto the cage and hangs from the bars, acting like a monkey. Emily laughs at Theodore's antics. It's no secret that the dwarf is trying to court the circus superwoman, always hanging around Emily, doing his best to entertain her. Emily is flattered by the attention and finds herself unexpectedly attracted to the minuscule gentleman.
You're very convincing, Teddy.
Really? You think I could pass for an ape and wrestle you in the arena?
Talk to Pearl about it. I'm sure she'll see another golden opportunity in your idea.
Yeah, right. I'm no taller than a chimp.
Theodore hops off of the cage and stands in front of Emily. He takes her hand and pats it.
If this hairy creep ever hurts you, I'll fight him myself.
Emily smiles and gives Theodore a kiss on the forehead.
I feel extra safe with you defending me from all these beasts.
Good night, my lady.
Good night, my hero.
Theodore looks at Emily with assurance. He turns and walks away, acting like he's 10 feet tall. For the next several years, Emily becomes internationally famous in her circus superwoman persona. As time passes, she notices her and Pearl never seem to age.
Being foreigners in this bygone world, time here has no physical effect on us.
Beyond that, Emily constantly wonders what became of Selina.
I've heard nothing of her since that day on the cliff. I pray Rurik hasn't killed her again.
Like most Emily's other questions, Pearl offers no answer to this one, and Emily finds it difficult to trust her. The woman remains an overall mystery and seems to deal in a lot of shady business. Theodore is her closest companion during this period. They are an odd couple for sure, but go surprisingly well together.
Hey, Emily. What do you get when you combine a super strong woman with an extra short man?
What?
Us.
He treats her like a queen, and she begins to love him for his sincerity and big heart. The circus makes a fortune, just as Pearl had predicted it would, and Emily becomes more sought after because of it.
I'm leaving the circus, Pearl. I've just received a rather tempting offer.
Don't tell me that Runt has proposed marriage.
No, not yet. This came to me in a letter. From Hollywood. One of the studios out there has invited me to speak with them.
Congratulations.
You're not angry?
My dear, you have made me a rich woman. But I've had other business prospects for a while now. This will give me the chance to pursue them.
Nothing illegal, I hope.
So what if they are? You won't be involved, and I've never shared your rigid moral restraints.
Emily drives to Hollywood in an antique jalopy. Pearl offered her an escort, but Emily wants to enter the movie capital in a modest fashion. She has only Theodore with her, who rides along with much enthusiasm.
While we're in Hollywood, I'm gonna start my own movie career as a slapstick comedian. I'll be the short version of Buster Keaton.
Great. We'll be one of those celebrity couples, like Pickford and Fairbanks.
Otis Whipsnade, the head of Orange Grove Pictures, reminds Emily of Humpty Dumpty before his infamous fall. The mogul has an oval-shaped body and egg-white complexion. He moves very carefully, as if afraid of tumbling over and cracking himself open. The man speaks in a slow drawl, pausing between each sentence to give Emily time to react to everything he tells her.
My wife and kids saw your show in Modesto. Told me I needed to put you in some movies. I generally believe everything they say. So here you are. Welcome to Hollywood, young lady.
Thank you for inviting me, Mr. Whipsnade.
They also said you're some kind of immigrant from outer space. That is one thing I do not believe.
You're right. My employer made it up. I was born in Illinois.
First thing you'll need is a new name. Nessbroker won't do.
Actually, it's Ness Bocker.
No good. Should be something like Durbin. That's it. Emily Durbin has a star quality to it.
What sort of movies will I be performing in?
Thrillers. First one is a Pacific adventure story. You'll play a pagan goddess the natives worship. When American explorers trespass on their island, your fury unleashes Terror of the Superwoman, based on the circus act of the same name.
Haven't you something more heroic?
Audiences aren't into good girl characters anymore. They want strong, ruthless women up on the screen.
With plenty of skin, no doubt.
As much as the National Board of Review will allow.
How many of these Superwoman films do you intend to produce?
Not much at first, around 10 to 15 a year. Then, depending on popularity, we'll increase production.
Emily stands atop an altar looking down on a gathering of actors, posing as island natives and American explorers. She is wearing a far more luxuriant version of her circus Superwoman attire with added feathers, flowers, and fake jewels. The cast cowers in fear as her goddess character extends her arms towards them in unspeakable anger. Smoke and flames arise from the set on both sides of the altar. Later, the terrifying Superwoman is in a simulated jungle play fighting with a group of men in gorilla costumes. The cameras roll as she appears to defeat the apes with murderous might.
Cut! That was beautiful.
Emily and Theodore mingle with Hollywood upper crust inside a movie producer's mansion.
We finished filming the 18th Superwoman picture today. The next one starts on Monday.
Looks like you have a hit series, Mr. Whipsnide.
With young audiences, at least, so we'll continue making them for now.
What about your new Cheney the Chimp comedies?
Teddy is the star of those ones.
Emily puts a hand on Theodore's shoulder as he beams with pride.
Expect plenty of pratfalls, pie fights, and other highbrow artistry. Emily may entertain the kiddies, but mine are strictly for the intellectual crowd.
Amid the gabble, Emily's attention is drawn to an isolated figure in one corner of the room. A woman in a sleek black gown with a headdress that encircles her entire head. The woman's face is doused in dark makeup. She acts cat-like, avoiding the people around her while looking at everyone with leery fixation.
Who is she?
The group with Emily all look at the lone woman.
That's Valeska Barra, a major star in Europe.
I brought her over here in hopes of making a few films that'll attract an adult audience for once. We'll see what comes of it.
Huh. She's more timid than a dwarf among big shots.
Theodore winks at the other guests.
Maybe loud Americans frighten her.
Well then, let's all give her a noisy American greeting.
You stay here. This looks like a job for Superwoman.
Emily leaves her group and walks toward Valeska. She is about to introduce herself before she freezes in shock. Emily recognizes the woman.
Selena?
Valeska looks at Emily. Her eyes widen in recognition. Valeska steps forward.
You're Emily Durbin. I'm a huge fan.
Selena, it's me. Superwoman.
Yes, I've seen all your films.
I mean, before the films, you were Catwoman.
That was a former life.
Did Rourke murder you again?
No, he introduced me to a director friend of his.
How has he been treating you?
Like all directors, he's a heartless tyrant.
Not him. Rourke.
Rurik is evil, the worst man who ever lived, and I'm stuck with him.
Where is he? I need to show him Terror of the Superwoman in real life.
Rurik is with his guy pals playing hopscotch.
They're too old for patty cake?
And too young for marbles. Rurik tends to put them in his mouth.
Good. Maybe he'll choke.
He's pathetic, worthy of death.
I hate him. But I won't kill him.
Then let's forget about him tonight. It's good to see you, Emily. How have you been?
Super. My strength and endurance are back, but nothing else.
Still can't fly, huh? That's a shame.
I can leap pretty high. Anywhere from 40 to 50 feet?
That's more than most people can.
Theodore appears from behind Emily.
Evening, ladies. I'm afraid your group contains too much physical perfection. Might I add a little blemish into it?
You may. Valeska, this strapping young buck is my fiancé, Theodore Menju.
Madam, it is a pleasure.
Likewise.
Teddy is a renowned comedian.
Only on the big screen. At parties, I'm dreadfully serious.
But never a bore.
Indeed. Do you recall the time I wore a lampshade as a hat to demonstrate my theory that all men are capable of bright ideas?
Was that before or after the party ended?
After. Everyone else was passed out on the floor, so my behavior went way over their heads.
Gee, Emily, your bow is much better than the one I got.
True. Not every man is as charming as my Teddy.
Hey, why don't we all leave this dull shindig for a night on the town?
I'm for that, if Valeska is.
Yes, please. Whipsnade keeps looking over at me like a racehorse he's invested too much money in.
Emily, Theodore, and Valeska dance the Charleston with a gathering of flappers and their escorts. Later, the three are seated at a table drinking champagne and conversing frivolously. One following Sunday, Emily and Theodore, along with Valeska, take a trip to the beach. The three splash about in the ocean.
Oops, I caught too many ladyfish. Better throw one of you back.
Theodore picks Valeska up and playfully tosses her into the water. Theodore laughs while Emily picks him up and tosses him 30 feet away into the ocean. After their swim, Theodore goes to buy hot dogs at a nearby stand while Emily and Valeska lounge on the beach.
I have something important to tell you, Emily. It's about Rurik.
Is he buried in your backyard?
Sadly not. Last night, a man named J.E. Curtis came to our house. He and Rurik had a private meeting that lasted for hours. I tried listening in on some of it. From what I gathered, they're planning something awful. A terrorist attack of some kind.
Have you got anything we could take to the police? Notes they made or written plans?
Nothing. I wish I had Superwoman here. The one who could fly and defeat villains.
Even with powers, I need proof.
They're meeting with other men tonight. I don't know where. We could follow them.
Too risky. I'm impenetrable, but you could get hurt.
So what? Rurik hurts me every day.
Except this time he might kill you.
Again, nothing new.
I haven't fought crime in ages. Not since 2020.
That's nearly 95 years from now. We can't wait until then.
Close to midnight, Emily drives up to the side of Valeska and Rurik's mansion. Valeska appears and gets into the passenger seat beside Emily. Valeska is wearing an all-black bodysuit and head wrap.
How do I look?
Just like Irma Vep from Les Vampires.
Yes, that's what I was going for. What about you? Where's your costume?
Under the overcoat. It's my old circus Superwoman outfit. The coat is more low-key for now.
Valeska looks into the back seat and sees a chimpanzee dressed in a unitard sitting back there. The chimp gives her a toothy smile. Valeska lets out a small yelp of fear.
Who is that?
It's Teddy. He insisted on coming along.
I'm Cheney, the crime-fighting simian.
At that moment, Rorik's vehicle drives away from the mansion. Emily slowly follows it. Both vehicles arrive at an old warehouse on the edge of town. Emily parks behind some trees outside the fence surrounding the warehouse. The three costumed heroes approach the fence. Emily wraps an arm around Theodore and the other around Valeska. She leaps over the fence. They sneak toward the warehouse when a bright light abruptly shines onto the trio, revealing them to Rurik and his gang. Emily, Valeska, and Theodore all freeze. Pearl Pitts stands before them. Rurik walks up beside Pearl, pointing a gun at Emily.
Poor Emily, trying to hide from me in the shadows. How foolish of you.
I didn't know you and Rurik were a thing.
Like you, he's another player in this period piece. I've been at the helm of this since the beginning.
I'm taking over this production right now.
Emily removes her overcoat, revealing her Superwoman attire. Rurik fires his gun. Emily's head retracts from the impact of the bullet. She stumbles, then regains her footing and faces her enemies again. Emily parts her lips, showing her teeth. The bullet isn't there. She completely opens her mouth and sticks her tongue out. Between the folds of her rolled-up tongue is the bullet.
Holy Houdini, Emily. You just caught a bullet with your tongue.
Emily unfolds her tongue, letting the bullet fall onto the ground. She looks at Rurik with rage and leaps toward him at an unbelievable speed. Emily rips the gun from Rurik's hand. She grabs him by the collar and throws him to the ground. Rurik coils in sheer terror. A mob of gangsters run forward with guns in hand. They all fire at Emily. Multiple bullets hit Superwoman but penetrate the costume only. After a period of continuous gunfire, Emily's outfit is in tatters, but she remains unharmed. She looks at Pearl and grins.
I'm gonna need a change of wardrobe.
Pearl smiles and nods.
That's a wrap. Cut!
All goes black and silent. Tune in again for Superwoman's next exciting chapter. Same time, same network. Cerebral Cinema hopes you have enjoyed this movie of the mind.